A single courageous act can transform a mortal into a god. Across countless cultures, ordinary beings transcended their limitations to achieve immortality, and we will explore 24 of these incredible journeys. By the end, you will understand the universal blueprint for greatness hidden within these ancient stories. We will uncover why a hero like Hercules had to endure impossible labors, and how a storyteller's words could literally cheat death. What does it truly take for a person to become a legend? Hercules clawed his way into the pantheon not through birthright, but through blood and toil. His path to immortality was paved with 12 impossible tasks, a punishment for a crime born of madness. He did not choose glory, he chose redemption. Each labor was a confrontation with the unimaginable. The Nemean lion, whose hide was impervious to weapons, forced Hercules to rely on his bare hands. The multi-headed Hydra grew 2 new heads for every one he severed, demanding not just strength but cunning. His final descent into the underworld to capture the 3-headed hound Cerberus was a journey into death itself. Scholars see these trials as profound metaphors. Each monstrous foe represented a primal human fear, from the untamed wilds to our own mortality. Hercules overcame them all through sheer, unyielding perseverance. His ultimate apotheosis, his transformation into a god, was not a gift. It was the universe's acknowledgement of a spirit refined by suffering and dedicated to the service of others. He earned his immortality, teaching us that the highest peaks are reached by climbing out of the deepest valleys. Yet for every hero who conquers with muscle, another triumphs with mind. While Hercules forged his immortality through physical struggle, another kind of power was making its spectacular entrance into the world. The birth of Athena was an event unlike any other. She did not enter the world as a helpless infant, but erupted from the forehead of her father Zeus, a fully grown woman clad in brilliant armor, her battle cry echoing across the heavens. Her very origin was a declaration, a profound statement that true power can spring directly from the mind. This was no gradual ascent from mortality, but an instantaneous arrival of divine wisdom itself. As the goddess of strategic warfare, wisdom, and craft, Athena became the ultimate patron. Heroes like Odysseus did not pray to her for brute strength, but for cleverness to outwit their foes and endurance to survive their long journeys. Entire cities, most notably Athens, chose her as their protector, valuing the order and civilization she represented over the raw fury of other gods. Scholars interpret her dramatic birth as the ultimate metaphor for reason emerging from chaos. When a brilliant idea strikes, it often feels exactly like that. A sudden, complete thought that arrives fully formed to solve an intractable problem. Athena's legacy, immortalized in countless statues and philosophical texts, proves that intellectual virtues, the power of a well-made plan or a beautifully crafted object, can achieve a permanence that rivals any physical feat. Her story is a testament to the transformative potential of a single, luminous insight. But what of those whose journey to immortality is not a flash of intellect, but a slow burn of the heart? Psyche's path to immortality was not paved with glorious battles, but with quiet, desperate tasks born of a mother-in-law's jealousy. Her story begins not with a quest for godhood, but with a simple human flaw, beauty so profound it incited the envy of Aphrodite herself. The goddess of love sent her son Eros to punish this mortal woman, but in a twist of fate, he fell deeply in love with her. Their marriage was a secret conducted in darkness, for Eros knew that should Psyche ever see his face, he would be forced to abandon her. Tricked by her own sisters and driven by a very human doubt, Psyche one night lit a lamp to gaze upon her husband. A drop of hot oil woke him and he vanished, leaving her utterly alone. Her journey to win him back was not a test of strength but of the heart. Aphrodite, seeing her chance, imposed a series of cruel and seemingly impossible labors. One demanded she separate a massive, tangled heap of grains, seeds, and beans into perfect piles by morning. Overwhelmed, Psyche did not rely on force but sat in patient despair. It was then that a colony of ants, taking pity on her, swarmed the mound and completed the task for her. This was the first lesson of her transformation, that perseverance is not always about struggle, but sometimes about accepting help and trusting in forces beyond your control. Her final and most terrifying task was a descent into the underworld itself. She was to fetch a box of beauty from Persephone, queen of the dead. This was a journey from which no mortal had ever returned, a direct confrontation with death. Guided by a talking tower who gave her cryptic, essential advice, she navigated the land of the dead, remembering the warnings: do not help anyone who appears to be in distress, and do not open the box. She succeeded in her retrieval, but on her return, a very human curiosity overcame her. She opened the box, hoping for a drop of divine beauty, only to be plunged into a death-like sleep. It was Eros himself, his love for her now fully acknowledged, who flew to her rescue and woke her. This was her ultimate test, a failure that ultimately led to her salvation, proving that perfection is not the requirement for transcendence, but rather the capacity for growth and the power of a love that forgives. Moved by their devotion, Zeus granted Psyche immortality, allowing her to unite with Eros forever. Her story is the soul's journey, a metaphor found across the world, where suffering endured for love refines a mortal being into something eternal. Her victory was not in conquering monsters, but in mastering her own spirit. And just as love can forge an immortal, so too can the sheer force of artistic expression. The power of art to confront death found its purest expression in the lonely figure of Orpheus. His music was not mere entertainment, it was a fundamental force of nature. With his lyre, he could calm savage beasts, make trees and rocks uproot themselves to follow him, and quiet the winds. But his greatest performance was not for an audience of the living. When his beloved wife Eurydice died from a snakebite on their wedding day, Orpheus refused to accept the finality of death. His grief was so profound that he chose to do what no mortal had ever dared. He descended into the sunless realm of Hades to bring her back. His weapon was not a sword but a song. He stood before the throne of Hades and Persephone, the cold and unyielding rulers of the dead, and he played. His melody was so unbearably beautiful, so filled with the genuine agony of his loss, that it moved the very stones of the underworld to weep. The tortured souls of the dead paused in their sufferings to listen. For the first time in eternity, the Furies, the avenging goddesses with serpents for hair, shed tears. Hades himself, the king who never granted favors, was swayed. He agreed to release Eurydice on one unbreakable condition: Orpheus must lead her out of the underworld and back to the land of the living without once turning around to look at her. It was a test of faith against the most agonizing doubt imaginable. Step by step, Orpheus climbed the dark path, listening for the faint footfalls of his wife behind him. With the light of the living world just ahead, a terrible fear gripped him. Was she truly there? Had the gods of the underworld tricked him? In a moment of heartbreaking humanity, he glanced back. He saw her for one final, fleeting instant, her face filled with love and sorrow before she was torn from him forever, this time for good. Orpheus had won her back with his art, but lost her through a very human flaw, that desperate need for certainty. He did not achieve the immortality of the body, but his story, his music, and the profound lesson of his failure achieved something else entirely, a legendary status that has resonated for thousands of years. His myth has inspired operas, poems, and paintings, each one a new life for his tale. Scholars see this as the ultimate power of artistic creation. Orpheus the man died, but Orpheus the artist lives on. His journey teaches us that art provides a different kind of immortality, preserving the essence of a person, their passions and their struggles, long after they are gone. It is a legacy built not on perfection, but on the raw, imperfect, and beautiful expression of what it means to be human. This profound power to heal and preserve through compassion would find its ultimate expression in another kind of journey, one that did not descend into darkness but ascended through selfless service. While Orpheus sought to conquer death with a song, another mortal dared to challenge it with the power of medicine itself. Asclepius, a healer trained by the wise centaur Chiron, did not merely treat the sick. He mastered his art to such an astounding degree that he began to pull souls back from the very brink of the underworld. His compassion became so potent it tipped the sacred scales of life and death. This was not an act of rebellion, but a natural extension of his devotion, a skill refined to its ultimate, logical conclusion. He was not fighting gods, he was simply healing, and his success became so absolute it shook the foundations of the cosmos. For Zeus, this was an unforgivable disruption of the world's natural order. If mortals could simply be brought back, what meaning did life or fate truly hold? In a flash of divine judgment, the king of the gods struck Asclepius down with his thunderbolt. It was a brutal end for a man whose entire life was dedicated to saving others. His transgression was not malice, but an excess of healing, a level of mastery that the universe itself could not tolerate from a mortal. Yet his story did not end there. Recognizing the purity of his intent and the monumental value of his gifts, Zeus later granted him a form of immortality, placing him among the stars as the constellation Ophiuchus, the serpent-bearer. The serpent, a creature that sheds its skin to be reborn, became his eternal symbol, representing the endless cycle of healing and renewal. On Earth, his legacy flourished in a different way. His cult centers, like the famous sanctuary at Epidaurus, became the hospitals of the ancient world. The sick and the suffering would travel for days to sleep in his sacred temples, believing that the god Asclepius would visit them in their dreams, offering diagnoses and cures that priests would interpret upon waking. This was a profound fusion of faith and medicine, where compassion was the central ritual. Asclepius achieved a godhood not of power, but of perpetual service. His journey teaches a powerful lesson that a profound dedication to alleviating the suffering of others can carve a name so deep into history that it becomes eternal. He reminds us that true mastery, even when it is cut short, can leave a legacy that shines as brightly as any star. And just as one man's compassion for the sick could redefine mortality, so could another's unwavering commitment to protecting the innocent. Perseus faced a monster whose very sight could turn a man to stone. His quest to behead the Gorgon Medusa was a suicide mission handed down by a tyrant, a task designed to be his end. But the son of Zeus was not merely strong, he was clever. He understood that some foes cannot be met with a direct gaze. Instead of confronting Medusa, he used a polished shield as a mirror, watching her reflection to guide his strike and sever her head without ever looking at her directly. This was not brute force, it was tactical genius. His journey was a masterclass in accepting help, for he was armed not just with his own courage, but with divine tools. Hermes gave him winged sandals for flight, Athena provided the reflective shield, and Hades lent a helm of darkness to shroud him from sight. Each gift was a piece of a puzzle, and Perseus was the one who had to fit them all together. He did not conquer through solitary might, but through alliances with powers greater than himself. His resourcefulness did not end with the Gorgon's death. He carried Medusa's severed head, a weapon of petrifying power, and used it to rescue the Princess Andromeda from a sea monster, turning the very instrument of his trial into a tool for salvation. His victories were clean, righteous, and purposeful. Unlike the tormented Hercules, Perseus' story lacks the same tragic weight, his path seeming almost charmed. This favor culminated in a legacy that stretched far beyond a single monster's lair. He used his fame and fortune to found the mighty city of Mycenae, a citadel whose lion gate still stands as a testament to his enduring influence. From monster slayer to city builder, his journey created a ripple effect that shaped civilization itself. For his deeds, he was granted a final honor, a place shimmering in the night sky as a constellation, a permanent reminder of the hero who used his wits to cheat a fatal gaze. His ascent shows that divine favor, when met with human ingenuity and a clear moral purpose, can forge a legend that builds kingdoms and reaches for the stars. Yet the foundations of civilization require more than a hero's sword. They demand the wisdom of a lawgiver. The quest to build civilization demanded more than laws. It required the very sustenance of life itself. In the highlands of ancient Mesoamerica, a different kind of deity emerged, one whose name meant precious serpent. Quetzalcoatl was not a distant god to be feared, but a creator who walked among the people. His most profound act began in the silent depths of the Underworld, a place known as Mictlan. There he descended not to conquer, but to gather. He sought the sacred bones of ancestors from previous worlds, collecting their dusty remains. To these bones he gave the ultimate gift of life, mixing them with his own blood, drawn in a painful act of self-sacrifice. From this divine offering, a new humanity was born. But his service did not end with creation. He looked upon the people and saw their struggle, their hunger. The staple of their future, maize, was locked away on a mountain, guarded by giant ants and formidable gods. Quetzalcoatl did not storm the mountain with force. He transformed himself into a black ant, a humble and unnoticed creature, and followed a line of ants deep into the heart of the mountain. He emerged with a single, perfect kernel of corn, a treasure he then gifted to humanity, forever changing their destiny. This was not a one-time gift. As the god of wind, he used his breath to clear the skies for rain. As a patron of wisdom, he bestowed the calendar, allowing people to track time and seasons, and the gift of writing to record their history. His entire existence was a cycle of giving, a constant renewal of the world through knowledge and sustenance. Scholars see Quetzalcoatl as the ultimate culture hero, a being whose immortality was not granted by conquest, but earned through indispensable contribution. His story teaches that a legacy built on serving the fundamental needs of a civilization, on feeding both the body and the mind, can achieve a permanence that rivals any physical monument. He became eternal not because he was powerful, but because he was essential. And just as one god brought the gift of corn to sustain a people, another would emerge to embody the very spirit of the harvest that feeds the world. The earth itself can grieve. When Hades, lord of the underworld, abducted the vibrant Persephone, her mother Demeter did not simply weep, she unleashed her sorrow upon the entire world. The goddess of the harvest abandoned her duties, casting aside her divine responsibilities in a paroxysm of maternal anguish. She roamed the earth in disguise, a broken figure, and as she wandered, the land mirrored her despair. Green fields turned to brittle brown, trees shed their leaves in sympathy, and a deep, unending winter fell upon the world. Humanity faced extinction not from war or monster, but from the simple, terrifying absence of growth. This was not a punishment, it was a consequence, a testament to how deeply the divine was woven into the fabric of life. Her relentless search finally led to a truth almost too terrible to bear. Her daughter was queen of the land of the dead. Demeter's grief then transformed into a formidable, unyielding negotiation. She would not allow life to continue unless her daughter was returned. Faced with the utter extinction of their worshippers, the gods intervened, forcing a compromise with the stubborn Hades. Because Persephone had eaten a few pomegranate seeds in the underworld, a symbolic act that bound her to that realm, she was required to return there for 1/3 of each year. This divine bargain did not simply rescue a maiden, it structured time itself. For the 2/3 of the year Persephone walks the earth with her mother, Demeter's joy makes the world burst with life, spring and summer. But when her daughter descends back to the underworld, Demeter's sorrow brings autumn and the barren sleep of winter. Her love literally remade reality, gifting humanity with the understandable rhythm of the seasons. This transformation granted Demeter an immortality of a different kind, an eternal relevance in every seed planted and every harvest gathered. Her story offered more than just an explanation for nature, it offered profound comfort. Her cult, the Eleusinian Mysteries, promised its initiates a blessed existence in the afterlife, a direct result of the goddess's own hard-won knowledge of life, death, and rebirth. Demeter's journey teaches that even the most powerful deities are reshaped by love and loss, and that from their deepest struggles can spring the most essential gifts for all of humanity. This theme of profound sacrifice for a greater understanding finds a powerful echo in the frozen halls of the Norse gods, where the pursuit of wisdom demanded a price almost too terrible to pay. The price of wisdom in the frozen north was paid not in gold, but in flesh and suffering. Odin, the all-father of the Norse gods, already held immense power, yet he was consumed by a hunger for knowledge that his divine status could not satisfy. He understood that the deepest secrets of the cosmos were not given, they were taken through unimaginable sacrifice. His first great offering was his own body. He journeyed to the base of Yggdrasil, the immense world tree that connects all the realms, and he hanged himself from its colossal branches. He hung there for 9 days and 9 nights, a willing victim pierced by his own spear. He refused all sustenance and comfort, staring into the chasm of his own mortality until the shadows of the runes, the ancient symbols of power and fate, were revealed to him in a final, shattering vision. This was not a battle against an external monster, but a brutal, inward-facing ordeal. He died to his old self, the simple warrior god, and was reborn as the master of magic and poetry, his very being now a vessel for cosmic truth. But his quest was not over. He soon traveled to the well of Erd, guarded by the head of the wisest being, Mimir, to drink from its waters and gain the understanding he craved. The price was one of his eyes. Without hesitation, Odin plucked it out and dropped it into the well, an eternal payment for a single draught of foresight. He became the one-eyed god, a living symbol of the trade-off required for true insight, that to gain one profound vision, you must willingly sacrifice another. Odin's immortality was not a static reward for being a king, but a dynamic state of becoming, constantly earned through this relentless, painful seeking. He embodies the powerful idea that divinity itself can be a journey, and that the ultimate power is not just strength, but the wisdom to know how to use it. His influence echoes from the ancient Viking skalds who composed epic poems in his name to the modern depictions of the wise, weary king in our stories today. He set a precedent that the most transformative quests are often internal, a war waged against one's own ignorance. This theme of a flawed being seeking a higher purpose through art finds a stunning parallel in a figure of pure celestial music. Even the gods can cast out their own for being imperfect. Hephaestus was born with a lame leg, a deformity that so disgusted his mother Hera that she hurled him from the divine heights of Mount Olympus. He fell for a full day before crashing into the sea, where he was rescued and raised by the sea nymphs Thetis and Eurynome. This was not a heroic beginning, but one of profound rejection. Yet, in that hidden underwater grotto, he discovered his true calling. He began to work with fire and metal, his powerful hands shaping materials into objects of breathtaking beauty and impossible function. He turned his exile into an apprenticeship, honing a skill so divine that the very gods who had spurned him would soon have to beg for his services. He built their palaces on Olympus, forging the very thrones they sat upon. He crafted Zeus's master lightning bolts, Athena's brilliant shield, and Achilles' legendary armor. His workshops were said to lie beneath volcanic mountains, where the Earth's raw, destructive power was channeled through his genius into acts of sublime creation. He did not just make static objects, he built automations, golden maidens who could think and move, and even a set of self-driving, bronze tripods that could roll in and out of the celestial halls on their own power. This was the ancient world's vision of artificial intelligence, a testament to a mind that saw beyond physical limitation. His mastery was so complete that he achieved the unthinkable. He was welcomed back to Olympus, not as an object of pity, but as its most indispensable artisan. In some versions of the myth, he was even given the goddess of beauty herself, Aphrodite, as his wife, a symbolic union of craftsmanship and allure. Hephaestus' journey teaches a powerful lesson about the nature of value. He transformed his greatest weakness, his lameness, into the very foundation of his strength, proving that what the world perceives as a flaw can become the source of one's ultimate power when paired with relentless innovation and perseverance. His immortality was not granted by birth, but forged by his own hands, a legacy that reminds us creation is a sure path to eternity. And just as the rhythm of a hammer on anvil brings order from chaos, so too can the structured harmony of music reflect the very order of the cosmos. Radiant Apollo arrived on Olympus not as a seasoned ruler, but as a brilliant, sometimes terrifying youth. His ascent began with a formidable act, the slaying of the monstrous serpent Python, which guarded the sacred spring at Delphi. This was not just the elimination of a beast, it was the clearing of a space for a new kind of power. On that hallowed ground, Apollo established his most famous oracle, a conduit where the voice of the divine could speak directly to humanity. This act set the pattern for his entire domain, a blend of raw power and enlightened purpose. His divine portfolio was astonishingly broad, uniting seemingly opposite forces under the banner of his brilliant light. With his golden lyre, he presided over music and poetry, his melodies capable of calming savage hearts and inspiring artists to their greatest works. Yet with his silver bow, he could unleash plague and sudden death, a stark reminder that the sun which nurtures life can also scorch the earth. This dual nature made him a god of profound complexity, a being of reason and order who was also capable of fierce, unpredictable passion. His influence was woven directly into the fabric of human civilization through his oracles. For centuries, kings, generals, and ordinary people made pilgrimages to Delphi, seeking guidance for everything from matters of state to personal voyages. The cryptic prophecies uttered by the Pythian priestess, who was believed to be filled with Apollo's essence, shaped the course of wars, the founding of cities, and the fates of heroes. He became the god who knew the threads of fate, and through his guidance, he embedded himself into the most critical decisions of the ancient world. Apollo's immortality was secured not by a single heroic deed, but by becoming the patron of everything that elevates human existence, from the healing arts that preserve life to the music that gives it meaning, and the prophetic insight that offers a glimpse into its design. His legacy teaches that a divine, or even a human, legacy is most enduring when it serves both the pragmatic and the sublime needs of the world. This profound connection to the guiding forces of civilization finds a humbler, yet equally powerful, expression in a story defined not by godly power, but by unwavering loyalty between a man and his dog. The night sky holds more than just stars. It holds entire life stories written in constellations. Among them, the giant figure of Orion the Hunter shines with a special kind of glory, born from incredible skill and a deeply tragic end. Orion was a mortal of such immense strength and hunting prowess that he became the only companion of the goddess Artemis herself, roaming the wilds as her equal in the chase. His myth is a tapestry of different threads, some claiming he was the son of Poseidon, which granted him the power to walk on water as easily as on land, making him a truly larger-than-life figure. But this closeness to divinity also contained the seeds of his doom. In one version of the tale, his hubris led him to boast that he would hunt down and kill every creature on earth, a claim that provoked the gods to send a small but deadly scorpion to sting him. In another, more poignant version, his death came from the hand of his own friend, Artemis, who was tricked by her brother Apollo into striking what she thought was a distant target, only to discover she had killed her beloved hunting partner. In both endings, his fate was sealed not by a worthy adversary, but by a twist of cruel circumstance. The grief that followed his death was so profound that the gods lifted him from the earth and placed him among the stars, forever frozen in his heroic pose, with the constellation of the Scorpion eternally chasing him across the celestial sphere. Orion's immortality was not one of peaceful godhood on Olympus, but of perpetual, visible remembrance. His journey teaches that a legend can be forged from the potent combination of extraordinary talent and a heartbreaking narrative. He lives on not in a palace, but in the collective imagination of everyone who looks up and sees his familiar shape, a constant reminder that our most memorable deeds can be etched into the very fabric of the universe. This elevation from mortal to celestial symbol shows that immortality can be a story told by the stars themselves. Yet for every hero whose legend is written in the heavens, another must carve theirs through sheer, unyielding endurance against impossible odds. The true measure of a hero is not always in the strength of his arm, but in the cunning of his mind. Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, spent 10 long years trying to sail home from the Trojan War, a journey that became an epic trial of intellect and endurance. His legend was born with a single, brilliant deception, the Trojan horse. While other warriors fought with swords, Odysseus fought with strategy, concealing an army within a hollow, wooden offering to trick the Trojans and finally end the conflict. This was the defining quality that would see him through the countless perils that lay ahead. He faced the monstrous, one-eyed Cyclops Polyphemus, a being of pure, savage strength. Trapped in the creature's cave, Odysseus did not attempt a futile direct assault. Instead, he told the monster his name was Nobody, and then, after blinding him with a heated stake, he escaped by clinging to the underbelly of the Cyclops' own sheep. When Polyphemus roared in pain, he cried out that nobody had hurt him, and his companions simply walked away, baffled. This was the power of a clever mind over brute force. Yet his intellect was constantly tested by his own pride. As his ship sailed away to safety, Odysseus could not resist shouting back his true name, allowing the blinded Cyclops to curse him by his father Poseidon, inviting the sea god's wrath for the remainder of his voyage. His journey was as much about mastering his own ego as it was about navigating treacherous waters. He outsmarted the enchanting sirens by having his crew plug their ears with wax and tie him to the ship's mast so he could hear their deadly song without being lured to his doom. He navigated the narrow passage between the sea monster Scylla and the whirlpool Charybdis, making a conscious, heartbreaking choice to sacrifice a few of his men to save the rest. Each challenge was a lesson in humility and the cost of leadership. He was not a perfect, godlike figure, but a deeply human one, prone to errors in judgment and driven by a desperate longing for home and his wife Penelope. This profound relatability is why his story has endured for millennia. Homer's epic poems did not grant him physical immortality, but they immortalized his essence, his cleverness, his resilience, and his flawed, enduring spirit. His name became a byword for a long, arduous journey, an odyssey, ensuring he would live on forever in the annals of Western literature. His tale proves that the sharpest weapon against fate is an adaptable mind, and that our greatest triumphs often come from the lessons learned in our most profound sufferings. This narrative of a hard-won return home, of a man stripped to his core and rebuilt, finds a startling contrast in a story where the hero willingly leaves everything behind, not for glory or homecoming, but for the ultimate redemption of another. Defiance can be a sacred act when it serves a greater good. This is the eternal lesson of the Titan Prometheus, a being who looked upon the shivering, ignorant form of humanity and chose compassion over obedience. In the earliest days, mortals lived in darkness and cold, huddled in caves without the spark of innovation. Zeus, the new king of the gods, had deliberately withheld fire, believing that humanity should remain a primitive, powerless species. But Prometheus saw their potential. He saw the minds waiting to be awakened, the hands capable of building and creating. In a single, audacious act of theft, he scaled the heights of Olympus, lit a torch from the sun's own chariot, and delivered fire to the world below. This was no simple gift of warmth. Fire was the key to everything. It allowed for the forging of metal, the creation of tools and weapons. It enabled the cooking of food, which improved health and fostered community. Most importantly, it illuminated the long nights, providing the time and the light for storytelling, for planning, for thought itself. It was the seed of all knowledge, technology, and civilization, handed to mortals by a rebel god. The wrath of Zeus was swift and horrifically creative. He ordered Prometheus to be chained to a desolate mountain peak in the Caucasus, exposed to the relentless elements. Each day, a monstrous eagle would descend, tearing open his flesh to devour his liver. Each night, as an immortal titan, his liver would regrow, only for the agonizing cycle to begin again at dawn. This was not a punishment designed to end, but an infinite loop of suffering, a perpetual payment for his crime of empathy. His crime was not theft, but the act of empowering those who were meant to remain powerless. For centuries, Prometheus endured, his screams echoing across the barren cliffs, a testament to the staggering cost of enlightenment. His story became a powerful symbol in philosophy and art, representing the ultimate sacrifice for the progress of others. He embodied the idea that challenging unjust authority, no matter how absolute, is a noble pursuit when it serves the cause of life and knowledge. His eventual liberation came from an unexpected savior, the hero Hercules, who during his own labors slew the eagle and broke the Titan's chains. This resolution was crucial. It showed that even the most severe divine punishment could not ultimately extinguish the value of his gift. Prometheus was welcomed into the cosmic order, his moral immortality secured. His legacy forces us to ask profound questions. What is the true price of the knowledge we possess? And with the power we have been given, what responsibility do we now bear for one another? This theme of a profound, world-altering gift finds a gentler yet equally transformative expression in a story where love itself blossoms from the barren earth. Beauty can be a dangerous thing, especially when it captures the heart of a goddess. The story of Adonis begins not with a heroic feat, but with a strange and sorrowful birth. His mother, a woman transformed into a myrtree, gave birth to him from within her own trunk, a being of such breathtaking beauty that Aphrodite, the goddess of love herself, was instantly captivated. She hid the infant in a chest and gave him to Persephone, queen of the underworld, for safekeeping. But when Persephone opened the chest and saw the child, she too fell in love and refused to give him back. This was a conflict not of weapons but of affection, a dispute over a mortal youth that reached the highest court, with Zeus himself as the judge. His decree was a compromise that would define Adonis forever. The year was split into 3 parts, one for Adonis to spend with Aphrodite, one with Persephone, and one for himself. But Adonis, smitten with the goddess of love, always gave his own portion to her, meaning he spent 2/3 of the year in the bright world of the living and 1/3 in the sunless realm of the dead. This arrangement was a fragile peace, a balance of love and loss that mirrored the natural world itself. His life was one of pastoral bliss, a perfect existence of hunting in the wilds with Aphrodite by his side. But this idyll was shattered by a single tragic event. A wild boar, sometimes said to be sent by a jealous god, gored Adonis, mortally wounding him. As he lay dying in Aphrodite's arms, his blood seeped into the earth, and from each drop, a brilliant red anemone flower sprang forth, a fleeting blossom as beautiful and as short-lived as the youth himself. His death was not a final end, but a transition. The original compromise was reinstated, formalizing his eternal cycle between the goddess of life and the queen of death. Adonis became a deity of rebirth and desire, his personal journey a powerful symbol of the vegetative cycle. The Greeks saw his time with Aphrodite as the spring and summer, when life bursts forth in a riot of passion and color. His annual descent to the underworld represented the barren autumn and winter, when the seed lies dormant in the cold earth. This connection was celebrated in the Adonia festival, where women would plant small, shallow gardens in broken potsherds. They would nurture fast-sprouting plants like fennel and lettuce, which would grow with intense speed, only to wither and die under the hot sun just as quickly. These gardens of Adonis were not meant for harvest. They were a ritual of poignant, fleeting beauty, a shared public mourning that acknowledged the intense joy and inevitable sorrow embedded in life and love. Adonis achieved immortality not through conquest or wisdom, but by becoming an emblem of a fundamental truth. His story teaches that even the most brief and tragic of lives can achieve eternal resonance when they become a symbol for the powerful, repeating rhythms of the world. He lives on in every spring bloom and every autumn decay, a testament to the idea that our deepest emotions are woven into the very fabric of nature. This focus on the cycles of life and death naturally turns our attention to the ultimate judges of what comes after, and the mortal who dared to challenge their final verdict. Death is not always an end, sometimes it is a profound reorganization. The story of the Egyptian god Osiris begins with a perfect kingdom thrown into chaos by the most intimate of betrayals. Osiris was a wise and benevolent king, teaching humanity the arts of agriculture and establishing laws of justice. But his brother Set, consumed by envy, plotted his destruction. In a gruesome act of treachery, Set tricked Osiris into lying inside an ornate chest, which he then sealed shut and hurled into the Nile. This was more than murder. It was an erasure, a scattering of a king's body and his legacy across the waters. His devoted wife and sister, the goddess Isis, searched the length of the river, gathering each piece of her husband from where the currents had carried him. Through her powerful magic and unwavering love, she reassembled his dismembered form and resurrected him just long enough to conceive their son, Horus. This act of reclamation was the first step toward a new kind of existence. Osiris did not return to rule the land of the living. His transformation was complete, and he descended to become the lord of the underworld, the green-skinned god of the dead, a judge of souls and a symbol of resurrection. His physical body had been destroyed, but from that fragmentation emerged a more eternal and essential role. This narrative formed the bedrock of ancient Egyptian spirituality. Every pharaoh sought to become Osiris in death, and every common person hoped to be judged worthy by him. The elaborate funerary rites, the mummification process, the Book of the Dead with its spells and passwords, all were designed to guide the soul through the perilous Duat, the Egyptian underworld. There, in the Hall of Judgment, the heart of the deceased was weighed against the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth and cosmic order. Osiris presided over this ultimate trial. A heavy heart burdened with sin would be devoured, but a heart in balance with the feather would be granted eternal life in the field of reeds, a paradise of abundance. His journey from murdered king to resurrected judge created a powerful moral framework for an entire civilization, teaching that a righteous life was the only true path to immortality. The cult of Osiris spread far beyond Egypt, deeply influencing Greek and Roman mystery religions with its potent promise of life after death for the initiated and the virtuous. His story is the ultimate metaphor for the triumph of order over chaos and for the hope that even from the most brutal destruction, renewal is possible. It is a narrative that finds a powerful echo in a different kind of honor, one forged not in the quiet of the tomb, but in the glorious, bloody chaos of the battlefield. Achilles was born with a fate he could not escape, a choice between two futures. His mother, the sea nymph Thetis, knew he was destined to die if he went to Troy. In a desperate attempt to rewrite his destiny, she dipped the infant in the sacred waters of the river Styx, holding him by one heel. Every part the water touched became invulnerable, but that one spot on his foot remained mortal, a single point of fatal weakness in an otherwise invincible body. This was not just a physical flaw, it was a profound metaphor for the inescapable humanity within even the greatest of heroes. Later, the choice was laid before him: live a long, peaceful, and forgotten life in his homeland, or sail to Troy and seize everlasting glory, knowing it would lead to an early death. He did not hesitate, he chose the glory. His rage during the Trojan War was the engine of his legend. When his honor was insulted and his war prize, the captive woman Briseis, was taken from him, he did not just sulk, he withdrew his immense strength from the battlefield, dooming his own allies to near certain defeat. This was not the action of a flawless god, but of a deeply proud and emotional man. His anger was so world-shaking that it forms the very first word of Homer's Iliad, the epic poem that would immortalize him. His grief, however, was even more powerful than his rage. When his closest companion, Patroclus, was slain while wearing Achilles' own armor, his sorrow transformed into a terrifying, focused vengeance. He returned to the fight with a fury that shook the plains of Troy, single-handedly routing the Trojan army, and finally facing their greatest hero, Hector, in a duel that was less a battle and more an execution. He killed Hector and, in a final, dishonoring act of grief, dragged his body behind his chariot around the walls of the city. This was the raw, unfiltered cost of his chosen path. His own death came soon after, as prophesied, from a single arrow shot by Paris that found its mark in his vulnerable heel. He achieved the physical immortality his mother had tried to give him, not through invulnerability, but through the story of his short, brilliant, and tragic life. His funeral was a spectacle of communal grief, with his comrades, the mighty Myrmidons, and even the goddess Thetis and her sea nymphs, rising from the waves to mourn him. His armor became the subject of a contest among the greatest Greek heroes, and his name became synonymous with martial prowess and the tragic price of glory. Achilles' cultural immortality was a conscious bargain. He traded decades of quiet life for an eternity of renown, teaching us that legacy is not always an accident, but can be a deliberate, costly choice. His story forces a haunting question: what is ultimately more valuable, a long life forgotten, or a short life that echoes through the ages? This focus on a legacy forged in the fires of war now turns our gaze to a journey defined by its opposite, a quest for inner peace and spiritual enlightenment that would resonate across the entire world. A prince once walked away from a life of absolute luxury to find an answer for all of humanity. Sheltered within his palace walls, Siddhartha Gautama was kept ignorant of the world's suffering until the day he ventured out and saw what his father had hidden from him: an old man, a sick person, a corpse, and finally, a serene ascetic. These four sights shattered his reality, revealing the inescapable truths of aging, sickness, and death. The sight of the peaceful holy man offered a single, tantalizing clue that there might be a way out of this universal pain. That very night, he left his royal title, his wife, and his newborn son, trading silks for simple robes in a radical quest for liberation. His first path was one of extreme self-denial. He joined a group of ascetics, starving his body and enduring intense physical hardship in the belief that punishing the flesh would free the spirit. But after nearly dying from deprivation, he realized this was not the way. He was still bound not by desire, but by the agony of the struggle itself. In that moment of profound insight, he found the middle way, a path of balance that rejects both sensual indulgence and self-mortification. He sat beneath a bodhi tree, vowing not to rise until he had discovered the ultimate truth. As he meditated, he faced down the entire army of Mara, the demon of illusion, who attacked him with temptations of desire and threats of fear. Unshaken, Siddhartha reached down and touched the earth, calling it as his witness to his right to seek enlightenment. With that gesture, the illusions shattered. Through the night, his understanding deepened, piercing the veils of ignorance until, with the dawn, he awoke, not as Prince Siddhartha, but as the Buddha, the awakened one. He had not become a god, but had unlocked the fundamental nature of reality, understanding the cause of suffering and the path to its end. His teachings, the Four Noble Truths, diagnose the human condition with stunning clarity. Life is suffering. Suffering is caused by craving and attachment. Suffering can cease, and the path to its end is the Noble Eightfold Path, a practical guide to ethical living, mental discipline, and wisdom. This was a revolutionary form of immortality. The Buddha's physical body eventually passed away, but his teachings created a ripple effect that has lasted for over 2 millennia. His enlightenment offered a map to transcend the endless cycle of samsara, of birth, death, and rebirth, by extinguishing the very fires of desire that fuel it. The ultimate goal, nirvana, is not a heavenly paradise, but an indescribable state of liberation, a blowing out of the flame, a release from all worldly concerns that is the truest form of peace. His journey proves that a legacy built on profound inner discovery and boundless compassion for all beings can achieve a permanence that far outshines any earthly throne or divine power. This spiritual ascent, born from a prince's courageous inquiry, now leads us to a very different beginning, one that starts not with renunciation, but with a divine birth destined to found a mighty culture. 2 infants were left to die by the Tiber River, a political threat erased before they could draw breath. but destiny has a strange way of intervening, and a she-wolf, hearing their cries, did not attack. Instead, she nursed them, her fierce maternal instinct saving the very boys who would one day build an empire. Found by a humble shepherd, the twins Romulus and Remus were raised unaware of their royal blood, their true heritage simmering just beneath the surface of a simple life. As they grew into men, that heritage re-emerged not as a unifying force, but as a source of fatal conflict. They decided to found a new city, but could not agree on its location. Romulus favored the Palatine Hill, while Remus stood on the Aventine. They sought a sign from the gods, watching for the flight of birds. Remus saw 6 vultures first, but Romulus soon saw 12. The dispute over who had won the divine favor escalated into a bitter argument, a clash of brotherly pride that ended in a single, irreversible act of violence. Romulus killed his own brother, marking the foundation of his city not with a celebration but with a brother's blood. He named the city after himself, Rome, and became its first king, a ruler born from both a miracle and a tragedy. His reign was one of strength and expansion, but his end was as mysterious as his beginning. While reviewing his troops on the field of Mars, a violent storm descended, enveloping the king in a dense, dark cloud. When it lifted, Romulus was gone. The people were terrified and confused until a senator, a trusted elder, came forward with a miraculous story. He claimed that Romulus had been carried up to the heavens to live among the gods. The Romans, a profoundly practical people, chose to believe this divine explanation. They did not merely honor his memory, they deified him, worshipping him as the god Quirinus, a protector of the Roman state and its people. This was not a reward for moral purity, but an acknowledgement of his monumental achievement. He had taken a patch of land and forged it into the beginnings of a civilization that would one day rule the known world. His apotheosis cemented the idea that the act of building a society, of imposing order on chaos, is itself a divine endeavor. The legacy of Rome, with its laws, its roads, and its language spreading across continents, stands as the ultimate monument to this transformative journey. It proves that a legacy carved into the very map of the world can elevate a mortal, flaws and all, to the status of an immortal guardian. This brutal, foundational story of a city built on fraternal conflict now gives way to a far gentler tale, a story where love itself becomes the only tool needed to bridge the ultimate divide between the living and the dead. Her unwavering devotion reassembled a god from scattered fragments. Isis, already a powerful goddess in the Egyptian pantheon, had her own immortality defined not by a single moment of apotheosis, but by an epic quest fueled by love. When her husband and brother Osiris was murdered and dismembered by their jealous brother Set, his body parts were cast across the land to ensure he could never be whole again. This was the ultimate desecration, a divine being reduced to pieces, but Isis refused to accept this fate. Her grief did not paralyze her, it mobilized her. With her sister Nephthys, she embarked on a relentless journey, scouring the Nile Delta for every part of the man she loved, from his head to his toes. Each recovery was a small victory against chaos, a testament to a loyalty that would not be broken by violence or distance. This was more than a search, it was a sacred act of reclamation, piecing together not just a body, but the very principle of order itself. Her cunning was as vital as her devotion. To hide from Set and to protect the infant Horus, she wielded magic with a mastery that became legendary. She was the great magician, the weaver of spells, whose words held the power to heal and to protect. This knowledge culminated in her most profound magical act. Once Osiris was reassembled and wrapped in linen, becoming the first mummy, Isis used her power to temporarily restore the breath of life to his body. In that single, miraculous moment, she conceived their son, Horus, the falcon-headed god who would one day avenge his father. This act was not a final resurrection, but a bridge, ensuring the lineage of kingship and the continuation of their story. Through this journey, Isis was transformed. She evolved from a consort into a universal mother figure, a protector of the dead who offered the promise of rebirth to her followers. Her cult spread far beyond Egypt, reaching Greece and Rome, where her temples stood as centers of comfort and mystery. In Roman London, devotees worshipped her as the Queen of Heaven, a goddess whose story of loss and triumphant love resonated across cultures. Her enduring influence for centuries proves that the virtues of loyalty, perseverance, and cunning intelligence can profoundly reshape a divine destiny, elevating a goddess into an eternal symbol of hope. The magic she wielded to reassemble a god finds a parallel in the power to assemble words into something equally lasting and profound. Memory itself gave birth to the forces that shape our culture. The Nine Muses were born from the union of Zeus, the king of the gods, and Mnemosyne, the Titaness of memory, an origin that reveals a profound truth. Their very existence is a declaration that true art and knowledge are not fleeting moments of genius, but are built upon the foundation of all that has been remembered and learned before. They did not seek individual glory through heroic deeds. Instead, they became the eternal patrons of human inspiration, each governing a distinct domain that elevates civilization. Calliope, with her tablet and stylus, presides over epic poetry, her voice echoing in the grand tales of heroes and gods. Clio, the muse of history, ensures the great deeds of the past are never forgotten. Eroto holds sway over love poetry, while Eutop's flute gives music its enchanting power. From the sacred dance of Terpsichore to the soaring tragedy of Melpomene and the sharp comedy of Thalia, they cover the full spectrum of human emotion. Even the sciences and astronomy fall under the watch of Urania, proving that the pursuit of cosmic order is itself an art. Their immortality is a symbiotic one. They breathe inspiration into a mortal artist who then labors to create a statue, a poem, or a symphony. That finished work, now existing in the world, carries a spark of the divine muse forward in time. Long after the artist has turned to dust, their creation continues to speak, to move, to inspire new generations. In this way, the muses live on. We do not build temples to them as isolated deities, but we honor them every time we are stirred by a powerful story or humbled by a beautiful equation. Their journey teaches that eternity can be found not in a single act, but in the perpetual act of giving. By becoming the source of creativity for others, they embedded themselves into the very fabric of human expression, ensuring their names are whispered in reverence wherever a new idea is born. This gentle guidance of human creativity stands in stark contrast to a tale where passion does not inspire art, but triggers a desperate physical transformation. Sometimes the most powerful transformations are born from a simple, whispered conversation through a crack in a wall. In the ancient city of Babylon, two young lovers, Pyramus and Thisbe, lived in adjoining houses, their families divided by a bitter feud. Their only connection was a slender fissure in the shared wall, a flaw through which they could speak of their forbidden love. They arranged to steal away by night, to meet under a mulberry tree near the tomb of Ninus, its branches heavy with snow-white fruit. Thisbe arrived first, her heart fluttering with anticipation, but her joy turned to terror when a lioness, its jaws still bloody from a recent kill, approached the spring to drink. In her panic, Thisbe dropped her veil and fled into a dark cave, the lioness sniffing at the delicate cloth, mauled it with bloody jaws before moving on. Moments later, Pyramus arrived. He saw the trampled ground, the lioness's tracks, and most horrifying of all, the torn and bloodied veil of his beloved. Convinced she had been torn to pieces, his world shattered, he drew his sword and in an act of ultimate despair and devotion, fell upon it, his lifeblood gushing forth to soak the roots of the mulberry tree. When Thisbe, fearing for his safety, crept back to the meeting place, she found not her lover but his lifeless body beneath the tree, now stained a deep, dark red from his blood. Her grief was as swift and absolute as his. She took up the same sword, joined him in death, and with her final breath, prayed that the mulberry fruit would forever bear the color of their tragic passion. The gods heard her plea, and from that day forward, the mulberry's fruit ripened to a permanent, bloody crimson. This story, immortalized by the Roman poet Ovid, did not grant them a place on Olympus. Their immortality was not one of divine power, but of symbolic resonance. Their narrative, with its secret meetings, cruel misunderstandings, and dual suicide, became a foundational blueprint for romantic tragedy. Centuries later, a playwright in England would use this very blueprint, adapting the tale of two star-crossed lovers from feuding families into the most famous love story ever written, Romeo and Juliet. Pyramus and Thisbe live on not as gods, but as an archetype, their essence repeated in every story where love is thwarted by circumstance and sealed by fate. Their journey proves that a narrative, when it captures the raw truth of human emotion, can achieve a permanence that transcends the physical body, transforming ordinary individuals into timeless motifs cherished across cultures. This theme of transformation through narrative now guides us toward a very different kind of legacy, one built not on tragic passion, but on the conscious pursuit of cultural harmony. Deep beneath the streets of ancient Rome, in hidden caves and underground chambers, men gathered in secret. They were soldiers, merchants, and bureaucrats, all bound by an oath of loyalty to a god who was not originally their own. This was the cult of Mithras, a deity whose journey to immortality was not one of solitary ascension, but of cultural migration and profound brotherhood. Mithras began his existence in the ancient Persian pantheon as a god of contracts and the light, a divine witness to truth. But when his myth traveled west and was embraced by the legions of the Roman Empire, he was transformed. His central, defining act was the tauroctony, the ritual slaying of a great primordial bull. In a sun-drenched field, Mithras is shown grappling with the mighty creature, not in anger, but as a necessary sacrifice. From the bull's dying body spilled all the goodness of the created world, its blood becoming the grapevine for wine, its seed yielding all useful herbs, and its spinal cord transforming into life-giving wheat. This was not a murder, but a genesis, an act of creation through a difficult, violent, and sacred contract with the cosmos. The Romans, a culture built on law and order, found deep meaning in this. The Mithraea, their underground temples, were designed to feel like the very cave of this world-creating event. They were long, narrow, and intimate, lit only by flickering torchlight, with a central aisle flanked by raised benches where the initiates would recline for a ritual meal. This was not a public religion, but a mystery cult, a series of 7 graded initiations that moved a man from the rank of raven to that of father. Each stage tested his loyalty, courage, and endurance, forging bonds of fraternity as strong as any forged in battle. The cult offered no elaborate public processions. Its power was in its exclusivity and its promise of salvation through knowledge and virtue. It emphasized a cosmic struggle between the forces of light, represented by the sun god Sol, and darkness, a duality that resonated deeply with soldiers who faced chaos daily. Mithras himself was often depicted in a remarkable scene, sharing a ceremonial feast with Sol, a symbol of the hard-won harmony between different powers. His immortality was not declared by a single myth, but built brick by his devoted followers across an empire. When the Roman legions marched, they carried Mithras with them, establishing his hidden temples from the deserts of Syria to the rainy frontiers of Britain. His story demonstrates that a divine being can achieve everlasting relevance not by remaining static, but by adapting, by speaking directly to the core needs of a community, and by offering a powerful sense of belonging. His name endures not because his temples still stand, but because the human yearning for brotherhood, purpose, and a personal contract with the divine is itself eternal. This power of a story to connect, to migrate, and to transform is the very essence of our final transformative journey. A mortal woman faced a king's wrath with nothing but an unfinished story. Scheherazade, the brilliant daughter of a vizier, volunteered to marry a ruler who, betrayed by his first wife, took a new bride each day only to have her executed at dawn. Her father pleaded with her to reconsider, but she had a plan not of violence but of suspense. On her wedding night, she began to tell the king a tale, a story so rich with adventure, mystery, and romance that he was utterly captivated. As the dawn approached, she stopped at the most critical moment, leaving the narrative deliberately unresolved. The king, consumed by curiosity, had to let her live for one more night to hear the story's end. The next night, she finished that story but immediately began another, ending again on a breathtaking cliffhanger. This pattern continued for 1001 nights, a strategic marathon of imagination that transformed her death sentence into a prolonged, shared journey of the mind. Night after night, her stories were not merely diversions, they were layered with profound wisdom, ethical dilemmas, and complex characters. Through the voyages of Sinbad, the cunning of Aladdin, and the adventures of Ali Baba, she subtly educated the king, reawakening his empathy and his sense of justice. She was not just saving her own life, she was healing his broken spirit, using narrative as her only medicine. Her narratives became a bridge between his isolated power and the vast, complicated world of human experience. After nearly 3 years of storytelling, something miraculous had happened. The king had fallen in love with her mind and her courage, and he had been fundamentally changed. He revoked his brutal decree, making her his true queen and partner. Scheherazade did not ascend to a physical immortality or become a goddess, but she achieved something perhaps even more enduring. The stories she spun, collected as 1001 Nights, outlived empires. They traveled from the Middle East across the globe, being translated, adapted, and retold in countless languages. Her name became synonymous with the power of narrative to captivate, to persuade, and to ultimately save lives. Her journey is the ultimate testament to the transformative power of intellect and creativity, proving that a well-told story can be a shield, a weapon, and a legacy all at once. With her final tale, our exploration of these 24 transformative journeys is complete. From the raw strength of Hercules to the strategic mind of Odysseus, from the selfless compassion of Asclepius to the narrative genius of Scheherazade, we have witnessed an incredible spectrum of paths to immortality. Each story, in its own unique way, reveals a piece of a universal blueprint. What common thread binds a goddess of wisdom, a healing god, and a storyteller queen? The answer lies not in the nature of their power, but in its application. Every one of these beings, whether through action, creation, or love, left an indelible mark on the world that outshone their mortal limitations. They remind us that while our bodies are temporary, the impact we choose to make does not have to be. Our own journey toward a meaningful legacy begins with a single, courageous step. 24 journeys from every corner of the ancient world, and yet a single, startling pattern emerges from the tapestry. The path to immortality, regardless of culture or creed, is never a simple reward. It is a brutal, beautiful, and universal process of transformation. Look closely at these stories, and you will see the same essential ingredients repeating. The first is profound self-sacrifice. Prometheus endured an eternity of torment for the sake of humanity. Odin willingly gave his eye and hung himself from the world tree for a drop of wisdom. This is not a minor inconvenience, it is a fundamental offering, a piece of one's own being traded for a higher understanding. The second thread is the mastery of an exceptional skill, refined to a degree that borders on the supernatural. Asclepius did not just practice medicine, he conquered death itself. Hephaestus did not merely forge metal, he built thinking, moving creations. Their immortality was a direct result of pushing a craft to its absolute, world-altering limit. Then there is the power of love, a force so potent it can reassemble a dismembered god or descend into the land of the dead. Isis searched the entire Nile for the pieces of Osiris, and Orpheus's song of grief moved the stone-hearted king of the underworld. Their devotion literally reshaped reality, proving that the heart's resolve is a formidable engine for change. And finally, every single one of these figures faced an impossible trial, a confrontation with their deepest fears. Hercules battled monsters that symbolized wild nature and mortality. Psyche faced the silent, terrifying depths of the underworld alone. The trial is the crucible, the fire that burns away the ordinary being to reveal the extraordinary one waiting within. Scholars call these patterns archetypes, the fundamental, recurring characters and journeys that live in the collective human unconscious. These myths are not random fairy tales. They are an ancient cross-cultural instruction manual for the soul. They tell us what every society, from Greece to Mesoamerica to India, has always valued and chosen to immortalize. Courage in the face of certain doom, wisdom over brute force, compassion for the suffering, and the relentless pursuit of a legacy through art, innovation, or service. The transformation is never superficial. A mortal does not become immortal by simply putting on a crown or being struck by lightning. They are fundamentally changed in their essence. The proud warrior must learn humility, the curious lover must learn faith, the selfish king must learn service. This internal metamorphosis is the true key, the alchemy that turns a human life into a timeless symbol. So why do these ancient blueprints still speak to us today, in a world of science and technology? Because they address the core of the human condition, our terror of death, our hope for meaning, and our deep-seated desire to leave a mark that outlives our brief years. We may not believe we can become literal gods, but we understand the longing to build something, to create something, to love so deeply that our story becomes part of the larger human narrative. These myths give us a vocabulary for our own struggles and aspirations. They show us that the path to a meaningful life, to our own personal form of legacy, has been mapped out for millennia. It requires sacrifice, demands mastery, is fueled by love, and is always forged in the fires of adversity. These 24 journeys reveal a startling truth. Immortality is never a simple reward for being born great. It is the universe's response to a life lived with profound intensity, a final seal placed upon a transformation that has already occurred within. Hercules was not granted godhood because he was strong. He was made divine because his strength was tempered in the crucible of suffering and redirected into service. Scheherazade did not save her life by being clever. She saved a kingdom by wielding her creativity as a tool for healing. The common thread is not power, but the application of that power. Courage in the face of certain doom, wisdom over brute force, compassion for the suffering, and a relentless drive to create something that outlasts the self. These are the qualities that every culture from every corner of the globe has chosen to immortalize. These myths are far more than ancient entertainment. They are a cross-cultural blueprint for the soul, an instruction manual written in the language of symbol and story. They tell us what humanity has always valued, what we collectively aspire to become. The trials, the sacrifices, the moments of love and loss are not random obstacles. They are the essential curriculum for a meaningful existence. The transformation is always internal first. A mortal does not become immortal by simply putting on a crown. They are fundamentally remade, their spirit refined until it shines with a light that death cannot extinguish. The proud warrior learns humility, the curious lover learns faith, the selfish king learns service. This internal metamorphosis is the true alchemy, the secret that turns a fleeting human life into a timeless symbol. So why do these ancient stories still resonate in our world of science and technology? Because they speak to the very core of what it means to be human. They address our deepest fears of oblivion and our most profound hopes for meaning. We may not believe we can become literal gods, but we understand the longing to build something enduring, to love so deeply that our story becomes part of the larger human narrative, to master a craft so completely that it carries our essence forward. These myths give us a vocabulary for our own struggles and a map for our own aspirations. They remind us that the path to a lasting legacy, to our own personal form of immortality, has been mapped out for millennia. It demands sacrifice, rewards mastery, is fueled by love, and is always forged in the fires of adversity. Your own journey may not involve slaying monsters or descending into the underworld, but it will require its own form of courage, its own moments of wisdom, and its own acts of creation. Let these stories be your guide and your inspiration. What single step will you take today to begin forging your own legacy? Thank you for sharing this exploration. If these transformative tales resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more journeys into myth and meaning. We would love to hear which of these immortal journeys inspired you most, so share your favorite in the comments.